agreement with World Bank, who provided the money, was to say, run the process for 1 year, let us get the data, so that will be the basis upon which we sign a long-term concession agreement with you.
Okay, so
there was no basis of doing that from the beginning because there was no reference point.
Okay, so let me just understand this. Please let me understand this. So the World Bank says, run it for a year. Hold on, run it for a year, so we'd have the data for the assessment. My simple question is, you say, after the running of it for 1 year, based on the data that you have, you go into a longer concession. After the 1 year, did you go into that long concession?
Yeah, so that will be explained in a short while. Remember that there was a special committee that was formed to develop this project. They went around the world, all the major exporting companies, and they proposed a model. And that model is the international best practice, where exporters are the ones who manage the port facilities for themselves. This is what happens everywhere in the world. Now, after the 1 year trial run, remember this was 2008. I think the contract was signed in October of 2008. That was the peak of the elections. So when we signed that, we were running trials. In early 2009, that is when we started significant volumes of exports. But it was still in the trial phase until around April or so. Now, within that period, there was a new government in place. And you know what happens in transition periods? You know, a whole year,
tell me what happens.
Nothing significant happens. Yes. So a new government comes, a new minister is appointed, everything has to start from scratch. You know, we approached them, they said, oh, nobody is worrying you. Why are you bothered? Go ahead and do your job. You know, this is a government project. And this is a priority investment area. So go ahead and do your job. Is anybody worrying you? Nobody is worrying you. Go ahead and do your job. And the year kept rolling and rolling, and the minister kept changing and changing, and back and forth, back and forth. That's it. But remember, this is a project which is for
hold on 1 minute.
Exporters.
Hold on 1 minute.
It is never meant to be a 1 year project.
Hold on
you start from the premises that
George,
it is a 1 year project, you make a mistake. So the whole discussion, becomes something else.
No,
it is not a year project.
George, hold on. You have provided us your side of the story, and your side of the story corroborates what I have told you. You have said it was meant to be a longer contract, but you were asked to sign a 1 year contract. So help me understand it. In effect, the contract you signed with the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority and the Ministry of Food and Agriculture in 2008, initial contract you signed, how long was it?
Let's get this clear. When you say a contract you sign, we are talking about all exporters who ship by sea in Ghana. This is not an individual company. We are talking about all exporters who send their exports by sea out of Ghana. This is what we are talking about. This is another company who had to do. So if you read the management agreement, for which I can make a copy available to you, you see the comprehensive, you have to read the preamble and everything. You understand the comprehensive nature of what this particular project was supposed to achieve. Then you have a better understanding. If you are reading from one document from DPHA, which is self-serving, you cannot come to any reasonable conclusion.
I am not reading just one document from GPHA. I have asked you the question, and based on the answers you're providing me, I'm asking further questions. You have said here on this program that it was supposed to run for 1 year, and based on the data that you gather, it would go on in the long term. I am asking you simply that at the time, all the exporters that you talked about, did you append your signature to any agreement that was supposed to run for 1 year, ending in October 2009, and then you expected to extend that particular contract? Was that the understanding you got?
Remember, I told you that in the port arrangements, what you have is a concession agreement. That concession agreement was supposed to be signed the following year after we have collected the data upon which that agreement would be signed, because there was no reference point when we started.
So was the concession agreement signed?
Concession agreement is not signed.
It is not signed.
Yes.
So
and there are reasons why.
Okay, so after 2009, what became of your operations?
We are there running. This is a government project for the export sector. We are still there, running every single day. This is a government project for the export sector of Ghana.
Mm-hmm. In 2015, were you aware when the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority signed a concession agreement with Fruit and Export Terminal Ghana? So
now that becomes interesting. So when we had this trial period to do this operation, what we did, because of the shortness of the time, obviously we couldn't invest in the heavy equipment and all that during the trial period. We had to wait and then get the information. We subcontracted Super Maritime to do the shore handling and stevedoring on our behalf within that period. Now, what Super Maritime was a company that was already in the port supplying services to the export sector at the time. So as the years went by and the concession agreement was not done, they continued to work for us. So they were working for us as a subcontractor. Originally, we thought that they were a stevedore company because our management agreement requires that we should subcontract all the stevedore companies. So when we discovered that they were not a stevedore company, we had to rearrange the whole situation where they had to release their equipment and stuff for us at a fee per pallet. And that's how we've been working all these years, from 2008 all along. Now, when this agreement was signed between GPHA and the Super Maritime to form FET in 2015, Super Maritime was still working for us using our license.
They were using your license to do what?
Time.
What were they using your license for?
They needed our license to do shore handling and stevedoring. Because they were not a stevedore company, they couldn't have done those jobs without our license. They were using our license to operate at the port.
Hold on a minute. Are you suggesting that the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority entered into an agreement with a company that was using your license to operate to do the very thing that you were doing?
Precisely. When we were put together by government to provide services for our members, and they go behind us and sign a new contract. Meanwhile, GPHA itself was a signatory to the management agreement in 2008.
But the GPHA makes that point that after 2009, and let me get back to that point. After 2009, when the initial agreement had expired, and let me read verbatim from what they actually said, because the GPHA makes that point that after the expiration of that particular contract, nothing happened until in May 2015, when they decided to contract, FET to do business for them. Let me just read that part here, which says that, in the October 2008 agreement was to run for an initial term of 1 year. That's clause 4. And clause 5 of the agreement provided for a renewal upon such terms that the parties may agree upon in writing. We wish to indicate that following the expiration of the agreement in October 2009, a series of meetings in which GPHA participated were held with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture and other stakeholders to review the project and to determine the way forward. Unfortunately, nothing concrete came out of the discussions and the agreement could not be renewed. That's according to the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. In the meantime, GPHA continued to allow FTC to manage and operate Shed 9 under annual operating license that it issued. GPHA also continued to apply the rebated tariff set out in the defunct 2008 agreement. This is the case. George, is it the case?
Yeah. So I'm saying that this is very self-serving, that this is self-serving. This is the GPHA narration and interpretation of what the arrangements are. And I'm telling you that it is not correct. You have to have the management agreement yourself, read it, and understand what I'm talking about. I am saying that this project was not a one-year project. This is Ministry of Food and Agriculture project. You have to come to Tema to understand what's going on. This is a whole facility, co-facility for the export sector in Ghana. The foods are received into cold storage, stored, consolidated, and when the ship comes, it's delivered to the ship. You know, this was a 5 million investment. It couldn't have been for a year. The horticulture industry is not a temporary arrangement. It's a permanent arrangement by government. All countries in the world provide such services for their horticulture sector. On what basis will government want to do it for a year? I've explained that it was to generate the data upon which a long-term concession agreement will be done. So if we forget about this one-year thing, I think we can have a better discussion about the issues, and then you can understand what's going on.
Yes, while we want to have a better understanding, you still, I mean, having beyond the one-year thing, you have confirmed that you did not sign the concession agreement. So if you did not sign the concession agreement, from that period you're working, you say it's a Government of Ghana project, fine. But if the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority decide to bring in another company, signs a concession agreement with them to engage in stevedoring, what wrong have they done?
A lot wrong with that.
What wrong have they done?
GPHA itself is a signatory to this management agreement. They were part of the committee that put this whole project together. They were part of the team that went around the world to see what others were doing, and they put up a model to do that. The management agreement was written by lawyers of GPHA. Now, Super Maritime, which is the majority shareholder in this arrangement, was working for FTC as a subcontractor. FTC had always been at the port. They are right under the nose of the head office of GPHA. If you decided to alter anything or sign any long-term arrangements of any sort with anybody, who do you talk to? Who do you talk to? It's not the people who own the cargo. You know, the ridiculous situation is what we are talking about is that you are talking about business which is owned by exporters. You do not talk to the exporters. And you go behind them, form a rival company to compete with the exporters over their own cargo. This is what we are talking about.
Now, somewhere in 2018, there was a plan to have FTC buy a stake in FET, right?
No, so what happened was that when we got to know about this by accident. We had a subcontractor working for us. They were invoicing us. GPHA was invoicing us, the stevedore company, and Sean Handler directly. Then along the line, we noticed that our invoices were no more coming directly from GPHA. So we were quite baffled what was going on. Then we went over to the port to talk to our staff over there to find out what's happening. We discovered that for some months already, our invoices were being diverted through Super Maritime. So they were adding it to their invoices and sending it to us. And the boys were signing on and the checks were paid. You know, so we needed to have an explanation why our services, business that we're doing, were being channeled through a third party to be paid. Okay? So it was at that time we realized that there was something really going wrong, you know. So obviously we objected. We wrote to GPHA and won that we were not going to pay any invoice which was not directly invoiced to us, you know. But because the game was on, this back and forth was going on and on and on and on and on. The whole of that period, 2018, 2017, 2016, 2017, back and forth. When it was due to have our license, it was a big fight. We had to threaten industrial action before we had our license renewed. So, along the line, we had to refer the matter to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture about what was happening. Remember that this project is owned by Ministry of Food and Agriculture. We were just put there to manage the facility on behalf of all horticultural exporters in Ghana. So, the ministry referred the matter to the Ministry of Transport, under whom GPHA who supervised GPHA operations. So the Ministry of Transport organized a series of meetings, and one which was an inter-ministerial meeting between officials for Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Ministry of Transport, FTC, GPHA. At that time, GPHA had a new Director General. So this new Director General, when it was his turn to speak, said he had analyzed the whole situation. He realized that mistakes were made in the past, that if he were in position, he wouldn't have done what happened, because GPHA had every opportunity to have consulted FTC before they went ahead to sign a new agreement with a third-party company. And at that time, it was 3 years into that agreement, FTC was not informed that this had happened. The question was why? Why was FTC not informed? So he asked for permission to try and find a solution between the two parties so they can resolve the issues. So he had a series of meetings. He appeared extremely sincere. We had a series of meetings, and he made proposals about how GPHA, FTC, FET to work with her in a team so that they could provide services to the horticulture sector. I remember that the FTC is operating at cost. For the exporters, it only facilitates exports. It is not to make us money. It's just to ensure that our foods are properly catered for, and when the ship comes, we can deliver it to the ship. We had used this company over all these years, since 2008 until that period, as our subcontractor until we terminated them when we realized that they were not sincere. So when this opportunity came, we decided to explore it to find whether we could find ways where we could work. So we went along. And then the MOU that we brokered was that we had to be equal shareholders. And I remember that these were our subcontractors, but we were still open to this. Mm-hmm. And there were some third, parties involved with the AEL, with the FET arrangements. We couldn't really identify those. So we were ready to go ahead with these arrangements and explore it. So we signed the MOU, but we requested that we have to do due diligence on the FET to find out who were behind and what was involved and all that before we proceeded. In the course of the due diligence, it became very clear that the FET and its major shareholder was not ready to share the information necessary for us to come to a conclusion. There was no way the board was going to approve any arrangement of any sort if we were not satisfied with a thorough due diligence report.
When you say they were not willing to share information, what information did you request? And
we contracted UI. We contracted UI to do the due diligence on our behalf. They were transaction advisors. Mm-hmm. And they made it clear to us that they were not getting the necessary documentation they needed to complete the job.
Okay, so I see that on November 11, 2019, EY decided, now they said letter of acceptance as transaction advisors to Fruit Terminal Company. And there was a request for the extension of the MOU when you had issues. So yes. So you requested there was a request for extension. Why couldn't the extension resolve those challenges?
Yeah, because there were considerable disruptions and information that they needed could not be provided for long periods of time. We had a series of meetings. We went back to GPHA, to compel them to provide the information needed so EY can do their job. We had to extend EY's contract on several occasions just for them to do their job. But they didn't get the information they needed to do their job. They only got partial information.
So when you say, for instance, that FET was creating bottlenecks in your operations, what exactly do you mean?
So, for instance, the arrangement that we had in the past, we were having the service delivered, the throughput service delivered for us at $7 per pallet. Mm-hmm. with these arrangements, when GPHA decided that we have to have FET do the stevedoring for us, when we had our own license to do our own thing, they decided to impose FET on us as the stevedore company to manage our own cargo. They are the regulators. We didn't have any other option. So if they say this is what you do, what have you got to do? Remember that FET is a GPHA company. They own 25% of it. And they are still the regulators. They are the referee and the player. What choice do we have? We have to go along with them, whilst we fight to restore the status quo. So this new service was not delivered to us. For instance, the stevedore shore handling together was $7 per service, per pallet, But what was happening was that we were now getting this service at a total cost a little over $9 altogether. Obviously, the extra cost was an additional expense for us, and this was costing us considerable costs, and we had an over expenditure for those years that for the period, and we still are having it.
Yes, but let me, get some further clarifications here. You talked about the GPHA being the regulator and still having stake in this particular company. Yeah. The GPHA also makes the claim that the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, their shed, they own shed 9 at the port,
yes,
which you were managing.
Yes.
What they did was to say, because the contract has expired, there's not been any renewal of the contract. We have gone ahead and decided to hand over this, stevedoring and other facility and handling of horticultural products to this. But you can still go ahead and manage Shed 9, which is owned by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, right?
Yeah, no, that's as I keep telling you, forget about this 1 year thing.
No, hold on. I am asking you a question. George, hold on. I'm asking you a question. It's not forget about the 1 year thing. Hold on, I'm asking you a question. And you've acknowledged that you were told you are still managing Shed 9. You were told that because Shed 9 belongs to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, you can go ahead and manage it, right?
Yes, but the management of Shed 9 goes along with other things. There is a management agreement with clear instructions, conditions, concessionary tariffs, advantages, priority arrangements, which are all part of the management agreements. This arrangement was signed by 3 parties: Ghana Ports Harbours Authority, Ministry of Food and Agriculture, and the food sector represented by FTC. If any of the parties want to vary any terms of the agreement, the 3 parties have to sit together and agree the changes that they want to do. You don't go behind everybody and you say, I want to make these changes. You don't inform anybody. You do it quietly, quietly behind everybody. And you expect them to accept? No, it cannot be accepted. GPHA didn't consult any of the parties.
I'll get back to you because GPHA also makes and accuses you, FTC, of acting in bad faith when you go reporting after you reach an agreement of you acquiring a stake in FET. But that'll be after these few messages. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right.
Right, so welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us. This is Upfront on the JoyNews channel, and I am Winston Amwa, and this evening we're talking about the controversy surrounding, the stevedoring and handling of horticultural products at the Tema port, and we have the chairman of FTC, that's George Boye, joining us here on Upfront. So before we went for the break, I told you that you had been accused of acting in bad faith. Now, I want to find out a few things from you. So in 2019, April, June, you were in discussions with FET to acquire 40% of the stake, right?
That was a proposal from GPHA.
I can't hear you. If you could speak up a bit for me.
So that was a proposal from GPHA as a way of resolving the impasse.
Did you accept that proposal?
We signed an MOU.
So you accepted that proposal?
Yeah. We were exploring it.
Why, when you say you were exploring it, what do you mean? Because you signed an MOU?
Remember that this is a Ministry of Food and Agriculture project, okay? Mm-hmm. Our presence there were based on specific conditions. We needed to be provided services as exporters. So when this proposal came as a way of resolving the impasse, we were exploring that to see if it was feasible, if it was in our interests. So if we had come to that conclusion, we would have recommended to the ministry that it was something that we could work with and that we should go along with it.
Now, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, you'd agree, has a shed at the Tema port, right? Shed 9.
That is the terminal.
Yes.
Yes.
And you were operating that, right?
Yes.
Good. Now, if you were exploring the acquisition of 40% stake in FET, why did you write to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to terminate their agreement and reinstate you?
So we didn't ask for any termination of any agreement. We didn't ask for any termination, but we had agreement. We have always asked for a renewal of our license. Nobody has ever desired any termination of any agreements because we don't recognize that agreement.
Now, the fact that you do not recognize the agreement does not invalidate the agreement. You'd agree?
No, remember that.
No, hold on. No, I mean, it's a very simple question. The fact that you do not recognize an agreement does not invalidate the agreement. You agree?
You have to go to basics of this matter.
No, it's not a matter. I mean, I'm just asking a very simple question.
It's a matter of opinion.
No, because you say no. You've made it clear. You said we do not recognize the agreement. The Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority say we have the authority to grant license to Steve Doring companies, and we have done so.
So yes, they have thousands, they have hundreds of Steve Doring companies.
So when you say you don't recognize an agreement granted by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, I am saying that does not invalidate the agreement because the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority has the authority to do so.
Sure.
Yes.
But mind you, this is a specific agreement to do a specific job. This job is to manage the fruits of exporters.
Did you, so based on your non-recognition of the agreement, did you write to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to have a continuation of your dealings under the terms of the 2008 contract?
That is how we have operated. So we just wanted not our project, our
yes,
jobs to be interfered with.
But my question is very clear. Did you write to them?
We write to the ministry all the time. Remember that it is their project. We are managing on their behalf.
Under this circumstance, did you write to them while you were still in negotiations with FET to have your terms of agreement under the 2008 agreement restored?
That has always been our desire. Remember that GPHA offered to find a solution for the impasse. One of them was this option. I told you we were exploring it. We have every right at any point to exit. We were exploring it. Remember that we had a full mandate from government to manage our facility ourselves. And we had done that since 2008 until 2018, uninterrupted.
And talking about uninterruption, the GPHA makes it very clear, yes, that at Shed 9, they had not interrupted anything. So you were exploring something. You wrote to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to, in this case, give you the terms of your agreement of 2008. The Ghana Airport Company says you acted in bad faith. Do you agree?
No, they acted in bad faith in the first place. On what basis did they have to sign an agreement with our subcontractor when they were signatory to the management agreement?
They were signatories to. They were signatories.
For 3 years.
They were signatories to an agreement signed in 2008, and in your own words, after 2009, based on data gatherings, you are going to go into a concession agreement. That you have admitted did not happen. The Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority tries to settle the impasse, gets you involved, you sign an MOU to acquire 40%, you appoint a transaction advisor, and then you go back on them. You don't think that is acting in bad faith?
Transaction advisors could not be allowed to do their job.
So the transaction advisors, so the transaction advisors advised you to do that?
If we didn't have all the facts and all the data in which we had to take a decision.
So the transaction advisors advised you to do that?
They didn't give us the report we needed to make the decision. They had to give us a report
based on what did you,
information they had.
Hold on.
It was not enough for us to take a decision.
Now, when you say they didn't give you a report to make a decision, based on what did you ask for an extension for, in the period of the MOU?
Winston, I told you that information was not forthcoming. I can show you correspondence from EY showing several meetings and other things, and were not honored. They didn't get the information they needed. You remember that EY, you have to contract them for a specific period to do their job. It was quite clear that the period that we had agreed to, they could not have finished their work. And so we needed to give them extension. At least we had a goodwill to explore this to the fullest.
Have you seen the FET concession agreement?
I have seen it.
Have you seen the exclusivity clause of 15 years?
So on what basis can there be exclusivity when exclusivity already is given to the industry?
Hold on. The exclusivity you are talking about, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, and you have admitted here that it was for a period of 1 year, and you're supposed to sign the other agreement, which has not been signed. And so we'll move on now. The Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority the agreement they signed with FET has exclusivity clauses. From clause 9 ongoing, you have seen that, haven't you?
Winston.
No, I'm just asking you. This is a yes or no question.
It's a ridiculous argument.
Hold on. This is a yes or no.
We are getting to ridiculous arguments.
No, this is a yes or no question.
This is an industry.
No, hold on. George, hold on. My question to you, George.
We have to get to the basics.
George, we are getting to the basics. Hold on. We're getting to the basics.
No, I'm not going to get to this ridiculous argument.
I am asking you a very simple question,
the industry, the way it operates.
George.
Have
you seen the contract?
To the farm, harvest their produce and bring it to the port. The exclusivity that we mean is that they have been given authority to manage their own shore handling and stevedoring of their own fruits and deliver it to the ship when it comes. They are not supposed to get involved in any other business at the port. They are supposed to do only their business, and it is only them that have been given the stevedore license to do that job. Nobody else. Nobody else. Now, how can you then give the same exclusivity to another company who doesn't have fruits, who is not involved in farming, is not involved in exports? What are they going to be managing?
So the simple question I asked you is not the explanation you're giving me, but the question I asked you is based on the concession agreement. You say you have seen it. You can express your challenges with it, but I am asking you simply, and this is straightforward, in there, do you see the exclusivity rights given to FET? It's a yes or no. Before you get into your explanations, do you see that?
Yeah, they claim to have exclusivity in that contract.
And it is in that contract. Good. Now, they say this, and they're making demands of $50 million based on this exclusivity. Based on this, isn't it the more reason that you should be looking at buying that stake in it rather than having it terminated?
We don't have to. In any case, this ridiculous demand of 50 million. On what basis will 50 million be demanded? For what? For what? What is the investment of FET at the port of Tema? That the Ghana government is so cheap, anybody can come and demand 50 million cedis and be paid? For what? When you go quietly, surreptitiously to form a company behind the people you are working for, claim to now have their exclusivity taken away from them and given to you, you do it with your eyes open.
In an agreement signed between them and the authority
to demand 50 million, this is ridiculous.
In an agreement signed between them and the authority mandated to do so, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. And they say, based on this, and the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority admit in a letter written to the Transport Minister that he had invested about $10 million in infrastructure development at the Tema ports. That is a letter written by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, George. So maybe you could check that. But finally, as we wrap it all up...
Listen, you should wait to receive documents from us. Then you are comparing apples with apples. You only have one side of the story.
I am asking you, George, I have asked you questions based on documents, based on letters you have also written, which the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority makes it available to the minister. Your letters that you've written, I have read some of them to you here. And so let me just end this, by saying, and I'll ask you my final question because we need to go for the news. Now, you say that you're being shortchanged as exporters. There's a possibility of the country losing $50 million. You say that doesn't matter, but you want your contract given to you, right?
There's no possibility. There's no possibility. Nobody has asked GPHA to cancel any contract. The ministers they have only asked that GPHA should honor its obligations to FTC by renewing their contract. That's all.
But in renewing your contract under the 2008 agreement, it will be taking away the functions agreed with FET. If they do so, and you know that. You know that.
No. You know, FET didn't have to exist in the first place.
That is not. George, the point is they exist now. There's an agreement with them. They exist now. There's an agreement with them.
The first thing is to establish on what conditions this company was established behind the people they were providing services for. That is the question we should be asking. Can we close our eyes over this? You have an arrangement where you are a signatory to the arrangement as a port authority. You go behind and sign a new contract with a third party and claim to pass on to them all the things. Remember, this is a Ministry of Food and Agriculture project.
We need to. George, you know what? We'll continue with this conversation.
Meeting concerning this, and you cannot go and take this project away without Ministry of Food and Agriculture.
Well. And we'll continue with the conversation. Our time is up. We'll continue with it. Thank you very much, George Boy, who is the chairman of a food terminal company. I promise we'll continue with this particular issue. We'll get to the bottom of all of this. This has been Upfront on the JoyNews channel. My name is Winston. Up next is JoyNews Prime. Keep watching the JoyNews channel.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.